Why is crop insurance important? It's a useful risk management tool. As you know, the weather can be very unpredictable in New Jersey. It's required to have disaster relief payments, sure eligibility, and it allows producers to survive a disaster and return to production while guaranteeing them a minimum income level. These are the insurable crops in New Jersey. I will touch a little bit upon if there's a crop that's not on here, you can get a written policy for it based on a policy in a neighboring state. I'll mention that a little bit later, but these are the ones that have policies written in New Jersey right now. What is an insurable cause of loss? Adverse weather conditions, failure of irrigation or water supply, fire, insects, plant disease, and wildlife, but this is pending that you follow best management practices and recommendations and if you still suffer a loss. What's not covered? Negligence, mismanagement, wrongdoing, crop abandonment, theft, vandalism, inability to market the commodity, lack of labor, or failure of the buyer to pay for the commodity. In the event that you experience a loss, it is your duty to protect the crop from further damage. Notify your agent within 72 hours of your initial discovery of the damage and no later than 15 days after the end of the insurance period. Leave representative samples intact until the crop insurance adjuster has had a chance to look at them. There are different options for crop insurance. One of the most popular that I'm going to touch more in depth upon is actual production history. And I will mention a little bit later on some of the other ones. Actual production history, this is one of the most common. It guarantees, the guarantees are based on your own farm production records and history, and you can choose 50 to 75% coverage level and up to 85 in certain states, but in New Jersey, 75 is the highest. CAT coverage goes along with this type of insurance policy. It's the lowest amount of coverage you can get, but it's only 50% of your average yield that you can cover, and you're only given 55% of the price election for the crop if you experience a loss. It is subsidized 100%, so there's no premium cost to you guys, but an administrative fee of $300 per crop, regardless of the acreage. But this won't provide adequate protection for most growers, so they choose buy-up coverage. As I already mentioned, it provides protection against these types of losses, unavoidable perils that would result in low yields, poor quality, late planting, having to replant, or prevented from planting on time. The premiums, some are partially subsidized by the government. It's determined from your producer records for 4 to 10 consecutive yields. If you don't have records for 4 to 10 consecutive yields, T yields are used, and this takes your county averages, but oftentimes can come out to less than your actual production history. Your yield guarantee is determined by taking your actual production history yield, multiplying it by the level of coverage you choose, the amount of acreage you want to insure, and your share. So here's an example of an indemnity payment calculation. As I mentioned, your per acre average yield multiplied by the coverage level gives you your per acre guarantee for that year. And if your production should fall below that guaranteed number, you would obviously suffer a loss, and you take that amount and multiply it by the price selection to get what you're paid out by the crop insurance policy. To put it in a more understandable version, let's say you have potatoes. You have 260 hundredweight per acre average yield of potatoes, and you choose a 65% coverage level. This gives you 169 hundredweight per acre guarantee. For the purposes of this example, you only produced 89 hundredweight per acre of potatoes, meaning you suffered an 80 hundredweight per acre loss. You take that loss amount and multiply it by $7.05, which is the price selection for potatoes. It varies depending on the different crop. And that gives you $564 indemnity payment per acre. This is another popular policy in New Jersey, adjusted gross revenue and adjusted gross revenue light. It's a little bit different from actual production history. It uses your farm's 5-year average revenue that's reported on your IRS tax form. It's a whole farm revenue insurance based on your yields, crop quality, and marketing history. It covers almost all the commodities that can be produced on a farm, crops that are grown for direct marketing, animal production and products, which there are not, that's not available under actual production history, greenhouse production, certain crops that are insured under the other types of policies, and it also covers economic losses instead of spot losses. It provides revenue protection against the insurable causes of loss that I mentioned. The premiums are also partially subsidized. It would insure crops that are otherwise uninsurable, or if there are no policies under the different type of crop insurance policies. Guards against revenue loss due to market fluctuation, and it's a good policy to have if you have a diversified operation with a bunch of, if you grow a little bit of everything. You choose your coverage level and payment rate. Different coverage levels are available depending on how many commodities you produce. For instance, if you produce 3 or more, you are eligible to choose up to an 80% coverage level with a 75 or 90% payment rate. So an example of this, let's say you choose an 80% coverage level and a 75% payment rate, and your approved adjusted gross revenue is $100,000. If your farm income should fall under $80,000, which is 80% of $100,000, this will trigger a payment. So for the example, let's say your income was $70,000 for that year, meaning you had a $10,000 loss of revenue. Take that loss, multiply it by the 75% payment rate, gives you $7,500 indemnity payment. The premiums for this are approximately 3 to 5% of your approved AGR, which for $100,000 would be between $3,000 and $5,000. However, you only pay part of the premiums. The government pays the other part. So as I mentioned, there's adjusted gross revenue and adjusted gross revenue light. There's a little bit of difference between the two. AGR has a higher max policy liability. It's better for larger farms. Adjusted gross revenue light has a little bit smaller. There's less paperwork for adjusted gross revenue light. There's no % limit for animal and animal products. It's optional to have multiple peril crop insurance, and the deadlines are different. For your options for non-covered crops, NAP, I believe somebody from the Farm Service Agency talked a little bit about NAP, so I'm not going to go into that. But written agreements. If a policy exists for the crop that you want to insure in another state, but not in this state, you can work with your insurance agents to adapt that policy to your conditions, providing that you have 3 years of production records. So they will take similar guidelines to develop a policy. Let's say, for instance, there's no grape policy right now for New Jersey, but there are policies for grapes in New York and Pennsylvania. If you wanted to insure grapes in New Jersey, they would take some of the conditions from those policies and apply them here in New Jersey. The risk management website has a list of insurable crops by state. Other types of insurance plans, dollar plan, this covers nursery crop insurance. It's also for sweet corn policies and forage policies. You would have a dollar plan of insurance, which is a little bit different than the actual production history we talked about and adjust gross revenue. And LGM, that's dairy, that insures your milk margins. Important dates, if you have crop insurance or are thinking about it, March 15th is the sales closing for corn, soybeans, grain sorghum, spring oats, spring forage seeding, sweet corn, processing beans, processing tomatoes, and AGR light. LGM, that runs a little bit differently in nursery. The nursery policy, that runs a little bit differently. That's continuous. This is the contact information. This is a number to a hotline in our office. So if you have any questions, take this down. If you think of anything later or anything, call it. We will answer. It's right in my coworker's office. This is our website. I constantly update it. With upcoming insurance dates, any other type of information about crop insurance you can find. And then this is the risk management website, risk management agency. They also have a ton of information about crop insurance.